Hi, welcome to an ADD Woman podcast. This is Lacy Estelle, and today I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Trina with My Lady ADHD. She is on Reels, she is on TikTok, she's out there being the greatest ADHD advocate, especially for those of us women. I love watching her stuff, and she's here today to talk to us about her journey through ADHD, what she's learned, how she's coping, and all the other really great things that come along with having ADHD. You can also find her at her website at myladyadhd.com.
Welcome to an ADD Woman podcast. I'm your host, Lacy Estelle, writer of all things about ADHD parenting and being an ADHD mother on Mothering the Storm with Lacy Estelle at lacyestelle.com. Here on an ADD Woman podcast, we're going to switch it up and talk about all things to do with ADHD as an adult woman and how we deal with it. Now, you might be thinking, ADHD, women don't really have that. Actually, we do. We've all just been doing such a great job for years of masking it. So let's dive in.
So, Trina, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh my gosh, that was like the nicest way that anyone's ever introduced me ever. Like, can you just follow me around? Just
Every time you enter a room, I will just be like,
oh, that felt
announcing.
very nice. Thank you so much. That was really sweet.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So, how did you get talking about ADHD online?
Oh my gosh. It's really not that long ago, actually. So I started the Instagram page back in October 2021. I had just found out I had ADHD. I was like, I'm going to start posting content and see if there's other women that have ADHD. Like, I didn't even know that there was like any other woman with ADHD, to be honest with you. I really had no idea. So I was like, I'm going to see if anybody does. And from there, it just kind of grew. And I was shocked that there are lots and lots of us.
There are lots of us. It's kind of crazy. Sometimes I actually told my husband, I was like, I need to check your Instagram. And he's like, why? I was like, because I feel like everybody on Instagram is only talking about ADHD, but I don't know if it's the algorithm because that's all I like. I'm liking all these people that have it too. And he's like, I don't see anything about ADHD on my Instagram. I was like, okay. So there's another.
Well, to be honest, my husband's Instagram is like tool hacks and like people getting into car accidents. Like that's what's on his.
So what is the obsession?
There's really not much mental health stuff going on my husband's TikTok or Instagram stuff. But no, it is a hot topic on TikTok. It is a hot topic on social media. It's just in general, it's just a very hot topic right now because women are finding out that they have ADHD. So we're all standing up and going,
hey, right. We need to kind of pay attention to this, right?
Exactly. And these social media, avenues appeal to our senses as ADHDers. So it's very obvious that that's where we would all meet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, we all get stuck in the scroll and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I do that too.
Yeah.
Oh, what else did they talk about? So when you found out you had ADHD, how did you journey to that space, like to going ahead and trying to get a diagnosis?
So last year I ended up moving like one state away. It was about 8 hours away from home. And I started a new job, and the new job was like checking every box for me. I was like, okay, this role is like perfect for me. And yet I was struggling like massively. I couldn't figure out like, okay, this is the job that you think will be perfect for the way you work. And it wasn't working. So I ended up in therapy because I was having what I thought were panic attacks, but they're actually like maybe an anxiety attack. And my therapist had ADHD. So she was like, day 2 or day 1, like, hey, let's get you tested for ADHD. This is where we should start with therapy because this is affecting every aspect of your life and you need to understand like why and how. So that was really eye-opening for me. So that kind of led me to the Instagram thing where I just thought, wow, I wonder if there's anyone else with ADHD. Like I had no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? And especially because I feel like we naturally isolate ourselves. Like, and I don't know, did she diagnose you with a subtype of ADHD? Did she say like combo or just inattentive or just ADHD kind of across the board?
Yeah, it's more of a combo, but I feel like I display every symptom from A to Z. Like I do feel like I'm the whole spectrum of ADHD.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
At different
how
times, different parts of it will kind of come out, I feel like. And I know, like, for me, it was like finding out about it, I was like, whoa. And then I would learn something else new about ADHD, and I'd be like, I always thought that that was, I don't know, just me being lazy
yeah,
or, just like not caring enough, which I think is like the most frustrating part because I feel like I've told other people, I'm like, when you have ADHD, there's like this person in your head that you are, and then there's like these behaviors that you do that you're like, that's not really who I am. Why did I do that? Or why
yeah.
can't I do that? You know what I'm
It's
saying? Like,
not, it's the translation. It's getting lost in translation. Like you have
mhm,
such a good starting point and there's like walls blocking
mhm.
it and then it comes out all wrong and you're like, what is happening? Yeah.
Oh
I
my
feel I
gosh.
feel that very deeply.
Yes, there are times, oh my gosh, I tell my husband this story, which actually I don't think this woman listens to me, but she's from my hometown, right? But I told him, I was like, you have to understand like how my brain like messes me up. I was like, because I will have the best of intentions and then something will happen and I'm just like, what comes out of my mouth or what I actually do is totally not what I was intending. I ran into this lady whose sons I went to school with years ago, and I ran into her at the gym like, I don't know, forever ago. And I think part of my brain was like in hyper focus mode, like I'm at the gym, I'm working out, I'm doing all of this, right? And so when she stopped me and she was like, "Hey, how are you?" And I was like, "I'm good. How are you?" And she was like, "Good, I said, "How are the boys?" And they were my age and she was like, "Oh, she was telling me about how her son that had graduated with me was going on to get his doctorate. She's like, "Well, my younger son, he's here all the time. He's a nurse." And I was like, "Yeah, good for him." I was like, "Yeah, I see him sometimes." And she's like, "Oh." And I was like, "But I don't say hi." And she was like, "Okay." And I was like, "I yeah, I just." She's like, "Okay." And, like, she looked at me like, "Okay, you're kind of a jerk." And I was like, that is totally not what I meant to say, but I just you know what? Bye. See you later." And I, like, walked away. But, like, I feel like,
I
hey, like,
love that.
that's a small glimpse into, like, how my brain will translate, like, I'll be like, "Okay, I'm gonna do the dishes," right? And then, like, I'll be in the kitchen and I'll wash, like, 4 dishes. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh, I start organizing the lazy Susan." And that was, like, not my intention at all, but
I
that's just
know.
where my brain, like, veered off.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just posted a thing on Instagram about my stories about this because I did that very thing. I started laundry and in 2 minutes I was on the floor of my bathroom painting my nails. And I was like, what went wrong here?
What happened? I know, and
Like,
it's so funny to me because I tell my husband, I'm like, "You know you have it too, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I don't think I have it like you do." And I was like, "Okay." Because there'll be days where, like, I'll see him now I get lucky because I have a husband that does a lot of housework, and I feel like when you have the inattentive type ADHD, you have to allow yourself to find a partner that will probably pull the weight a little bit more so, just because, at least in my case, I was with somebody who was very much like me, very much like, oh, go with the flow, no big deal, we'll figure it out later. And it stressed me out like to the max. And we didn't work out. And I think that that was because of that, because we didn't balance each other well. We were both too like
yeah,
relaxed
you
about
need
everything.
someone to like toe the
Be
line
like,
for you.
"Yes,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we're gonna do." And so my husband does that, but sometimes I swear I'll see him, like, he'll be like, "Okay, I'm gonna go out to the garage and I'm gonna work on blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay." And then next thing I know, he's like dragging the laundry from the bathroom to the basement, and then he disappears for like hours. And then I'll go downstairs. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I decided to clean the fish tank while I was down here." And I'm like, I thought you were out in the garage." He's like, "Yeah, well, then I did the laundry and then I saw the fish." And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
how
I relate to
distractions
that.
work."
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
That's relatable.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So now you
My
told me, go ahead.
my husband is very similar. I think that he also has ADHD, but it just comes out so differently than mine.
So different, right? I know.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing because I told him, I was like, I don't know if you have it. You're like an on time person and like I'm never on time. But I think that that's actually more of like his coping mechanism for it, like, because naturally he probably would have erred on the side of being not on time, but because it stressed him out too much, he like went the opposite
Overcompensate.
direction. Right.
Yeah.
Where like for me, I'm like, I just realized that I'm probably never going to be a really on time person. So I just kind of let it go. Right. Whereas for him, he's like, no, I have to do everything I can to make sure that I'm on time. I'm like, okay, well, then you might not want to hitch yourself to my wagon. I'm never going to.
I have these same conversations with my husband daily.
Yeah. Yep.
It's funny.
So you told me before you do have kids.
I do.
And you said that one of them is on the spectrum. And then, but do you have, how many kids do you have?
So I have 3. I have 1 biological child and 2 stepchildren. So my 1 biological child, yes, shocker, autism. So.
And how do you find like, and hopefully this isn't getting too personal, but I know that like my listeners sometimes they're like, I need the personal stuff because it's the personal stuff that not everybody is willing to talk about. So with autism, I have one son who he hasn't been diagnosed with autism. What they've diagnosed him with, or what they kind of want to lean towards, is something called nonverbal learning disorder, which is kind of like Asperger's, but they don't label Asperger's anymore. It's usually all just autism spectrum disorder. He's very much seems to me like he has that, but there's just certain marks that he doesn't hit for them to want to get him tested. He definitely fits the ADHD diagnosis. But what I find in our household is the sensory overwhelm that can happen for everyone. Because I have, 2 older sons that have ADHD. We suspect that my stepdaughter has it because her mother has it. And then we have a toddler running around being crazy too. So all of us will be like, it's just kind of like one of that like boiling water underneath that, like, as the sensory of everything going on, some of us will all boil over at the same time. Do you find that that's definitely something that like you and your husband and your daughter have to kind of work through with her sensory stuff?
With her, because I feel like I'm very aware of my surroundings, like hyper aware. I can tell when she's like about to get to that point and we have like, okay, time alone, like go be alone. She has like a lot of downtime for her energy, and she has like headphones and she has fidget stuff. But when we're out in public, when we're out, like if we've been around too many people, or if we're just, I don't know, she gets so much overwhelm that we do have to like kind of regulate her energy. And I know as her mom what that kind of looks like. But as she's getting into like her teen years, like it's kind of changing a little bit. It's been like really interesting. But I didn't know that I had ADHD, and I didn't know she had autism until like last year. So for the last like 10 or 11 years, it's been a lot of conflict and a lot of like learning that, plus I'm an extreme extrovert, she's an extreme introvert. So there's like that alone is like a disaster sometimes. But yeah, I get my energy from people and she drains from people. So like the 2 of us do struggle, but we can find little pockets.
Yeah.
Where we like a happy medium.
I'm sure eventually it will be, even if it's not already, but like similar to like your husband. Like I was saying with my husband, sometimes I tell him, I'm like, we balance each other because we're opposites. Like we literally went out for ice cream today because it's Father's Day, and we got ice cream, and I don't eat dairy. The only dairy-free ice cream they had was chocolate. So he opted to get chocolate too. He's like, I would never pick this. I'm a vanilla person all the way. I was like, I know, you're so weird. And he's like, yeah, but I was like, but you're kind of like the vanilla, to like my chocolate, because we are the opposites. But somehow those opposite pieces, they fit together really well. And then we end up helping each other, work as a team, where I'm sure that you with your daughter, you'll be able to do the same sort of things for her, so that later in life, when she's working with other people or she's around other people that are more like her mom, she'll be like, okay, I understand how you work. I understand how you tick. So
yeah, I do feel like we have a special bond because there's really not anyone else that can sense when she's got the highs and the lows. And so she relies on me pretty heavily for, we have a very close bond. It'll be hard to get her out of the house. I've always said, like,
they say daughters are daughters for life.
Leave. Yeah, she's very attached to my hip. Even as a teen, she's like very close. So, which is really nice, but overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. I was going to ask you too. So you said that you guys just learned about this for her for last year. was this something that you started to notice, like it was affecting some other part of her life, like school or anything like that, or just
So
you just
yeah,
got
I
used to
mean,
it?
I've known that she was sensitive to like sensory stuff forever. But I didn't really connect to autism because that's just not how what I knew of autism, which the narrative was just wrong in my head. But I pulled her out of school in like fourth grade, right before COVID, like the year before, which good timing. Because I
Right.
had already like knew how to homeschool. So I pulled her out because of the sensory overload she was experiencing at school. So like I have known for a while, but yeah, she got diagnosed last year. And the craziest thing about that is it's because she started watching ADHD videos, and then she like, of course, autism videos pop up, and she came to me and said, Mom, like I'm really relating to this.
Yeah.
And I started reading it and I was like, holy crap, this is my child that is on a meme. Like it's just like my child is
Diagnosed
on.
by a meme, but at the same time,
Yeah. And she's always been like so unique and so different. And I thought like, well, it makes sense. So yeah, that's been an interesting journey. Like the Instagram is affecting and TikTok is like affecting a lot.
so with you being an extrovert, has social aspects always been fairly easy for you, even though you have ADHD? Because one thing I do find, especially with my kids, my oldest son seems to be a little bit more extroverted. And my younger son is more introverted, like I am, where I'm a very outgoing introvert. I like talking to people. I can do public places in small amounts. I even told my husband, I was like, well, I want to eventually be like a public speaker. I'd like to go out and do public speaking. He's like, that doesn't sound like somebody who's an introvert. I'm like, well, I'm still saying it will drain me completely to do it, but it's still something that I think I could enjoy doing. But what I notice is that my outgoing, extroverted older son who has ADHD, it's fairly easy for him to find common ground with friends. My younger son, on the other hand, very introverted. He's also the one, like I said, I think he may actually be on the spectrum and they just keep missing it. But he only has like one friend. And
Yeah.
part of it, like as a mom, is that something that you also noticed, like with your daughter? Did she struggle with social relationships at all?
So my daughter will usually get adopted by an extroverted friend. But it was the craziest thing since we moved somewhere where she didn't know anybody and she's homeschooled. So I was very worried about how she was going to make friends. So I was like setting us up on play dates with random people, like trying to find common ground with people on Facebook groups so that our kids could meet up. Like I was going way overboard to find a friend for my daughter because I was worried that she wasn't going to have anyone. So I did all these crazy meetups. None of those kids connected with my kid. It was like a waste of time. So I sent her to art class and she came home the next day and was like, I got a best friend. And like, no joke, they're best friends now. And we're going to France with their family like in a month. So
That's
like
awesome.
I'm not that worried about her anymore. Like she's in a band. I'm gonna go on about my daughter. She's in a little band. And I invited my sister and my husband to meet it was at a venue. And I didn't know, but my daughter invited like 20 people and they all showed up.
That's awesome.
Like, I'm not even exaggerating. There's like, so my daughter is an extreme introvert, but yet somehow manages to have more friends than I do and like has this great like following of groupies that follow her. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not worried, but I was worried and she proved me wrong that I don't need to worry about her, like that she can take care of herself. So it's been really cool to see that because like she surprised me because like I said, I thought she'd like stay in my house forever. That probably won't happen. Like she'll probably surprise me and she'll probably like flourish, so it's just interesting.
That's good. That's really exciting. And I know that feeling because there's been times for me where, especially I think I worry most about my younger son when he's, so into like one of the things me and him have been practicing a lot lately as having two-way conversations because he's really good about only having one-way conversations. He wants to tell me lots of stuff that I have no idea about, shows he's into, things he's all into right now, hobbies he loves. And I have to say, okay, let's make this a two-way conversation. Let's talk about something that we can both talk about. Why don't you ask me how my day was? I'll ask you how your day was. And like it literally is something with him that we have to practice because he just doesn't really grasp that social concept. But then I did find out that he has a very best friend too, just one right now. And it's mainly, like you said, it started by interest-based friendships. And for him, they had in common that they both loved this one show and they could talk about it for hours on end. And I was like, well, I guess that's perfect for you. So here I was asking you to give me a two-way conversation because
Exactly.
I was needing for you to have an interest in something I can relate to, but you're more than capable of having two-way conversations as long as the person on the other end totally knows what you're talking about. So
I know it's interesting. It's like us being forced to make friends with people that don't have ADHD when really I have like the best friendships with ADHD people. Like, like maybe people with autism will also gravitate towards one another the way that people with ADHD do. And like we can find each other. We don't need to be like forced into like what I was trying to do to my daughter. Like, you will have a friend and it will be this one. Like, I just just let people be themselves and you'll attract the right people. That's the thing. And my daughter is very authentic to herself, like beats her own drum, gives zero about what anybody wants her to wear, think, or say or do. Like, she's her, and naturally she brings, like, her people know her. Her people recognize her when they see her. So it's like once you're your authentic self, people are like, oh yeah, that's the person I want to hang out with.
Right. So let's talk about that for a second, because that's one thing that I find so many ADHD women are like, oh, I have ADHD. Like, I don't actually have to mask myself. Like, when I looked back, I was like, okay, I've been trying to like literally fit a square peg in a round hole.
I've been saying that my whole life, feeling, because I felt that. I physically have felt that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so instead of just embracing, and I kind of say that kind of backwards, because even though I like embrace my ADHD, it's more like embracing like my quirkiness that comes with my ADHD. Like, I totally still am like, no, I reject the notion that I have to be disorganized to have ADHD. Like, this I actually care about, so I'm going to work really hard on fixing that. It's just more of like a weak spot. It's not my strong suit,
Right.
But I did find that it took me all the way until like I was close to getting diagnosed that I was like, you know what? I can say no. I can say no. People can see the real me, and they don't have to like me.
I don't know what stage in the ADHD diagnosis that comes, but like, I've definitely hit that too, where I'm like, no, not going to do that. And people don't like to hear that sometimes. It's been very interesting to like put boundaries up and see what happens when other people are like, what?
Yeah. I found too, especially because of the sensitivity to rejection that a lot of us will experience, that like I will say no, and then I'm like, okay, I know I know that was the right thing to do, to say no, but like if you're gonna be mad at me, I don't know if I can handle that. So just go away.
Go on and be mad at me.
Go on and be mad at me somewhere else, not right in front of me, and then I'll be okay with it. Because that is definitely like I had to kind of like retrain my brain to like not necessarily to override my ADHD, but to just actually like settle with it. Like when I would feel that like rejection from somebody, I'd be like, okay, this is normal. You are more sensitive to rejection. You know that about yourself. It's not as bad as it seems. So let's just.
It helps to calm you down, knowing.
It does.
It really, truly does. That's the craziest thing, is just knowing that there's a reason for it. Mm-hmm. Makes it less on you, like you're wearing it like a jacket, like it's very interesting. I think I don't know what stage that is either, where you're just like, I don't know.
Part of me, I feel like I kind of look at it all like grief. I'm like, because I had to kind of like grieve the person that I thought I was, because I remember like when I first got diagnosed, I was mad. Like, I was so mad, especially because like there's a large part of you that looks back and you're like, man, maybe I would have made so many different decisions had I known what I was dealing with. Like, for me, I didn't finish college and I had children really, really young. I had my first son when I was 19, and I stayed in a really toxic relationship for way longer than I should have. And so a lot of me was like, I might not have wasted so much time had I known, or I might have been able to finish college had I known. But at the same time, I'm like, I really can't look at it that way, just because it's not worth looking back on it like that. And instead it's just like, okay, well, let me just try to help people as much as I can going forward.
Here's the thing. Like, if I had been diagnosed when I was 5 or 10 or 20, I probably wouldn't have started an Instagram page and met 70,000 other people that have ADHD and I connect to. I might have never felt connected to anyone in that way. So like, I have to look at it like, this was the time you were supposed to get your diagnosis. this is the time you're supposed to join this platform. I actually felt like extremely drawn to having a social media presence of talking about ADHD. And I was not that surprised when it started growing, just because I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. Like it was just like a divine feeling.
Mhm.
So, which is such a weird thing because it's a social media.
Right.
But it felt like it was the start of something much bigger for me,
Mhm.
like just on the right path for the first time. So, like,
Right.
that's a feeling that I hadn't really had before. So that's why
Awesome.
I've definitely been able to stick to it. And I feel like that's the thing that all ADHDers need is that feeling.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
Absolutely. Like
it's
that
like,
they're able to step into their authenticity and actually utilize that.
exactly. I want to teach like how to find this, but it literally took me 34 years to like get to this place. But after I got diagnosed, it did not actually take me that long to get to that place. So if you look at it that way,
Right.
like it didn't really take that long. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing because I'm like every day I feel closer to what I'm supposed to be doing. And I have been so far from that for so
Right.
long.
Because you were like,
So
so for me, I was like constantly pedaling in the directions of like what I thought I was supposed to do, especially because when you have ADHD, you have all these really great ideas, and people are always like, that's unrealistic. That's unrealistic. Don't
mhm.
do that. Don't bother with that. But at the same time, I'm like, it's only unrealistic because you're not willing to take the risks. And if anything, as an ADHD person, I feel like that's one of our gifts is that we are willing to take a lot of risks and we are willing to be vulnerable and go on social media and talk about all of our quirkiness or whatever and get other people to understand and relate to us
Yeah.
that can say, oh, wow, I'm totally just like that. I just would never post it, but I'm so glad that you did. So, but that
Yeah.
helps because it brings people together. And I feel like for a long time, it was like, if I didn't go to college or if I didn't do this or if I didn't do that, then that just affirmed for me all of the things that people always told me about myself, which was that I was lazy, that I didn't put in the hard work, or I didn't try as
Right.
hard as they thought I could. And that was really frustrating to me. And it actually would just shut me down, which I find with a lot of people and a lot of ADHD people. Like I think there's a meme or like a trend going on right now where it's like, my ADHD, and the person's like so excited they're finally ready, they're like gonna do the dishes, and then somebody from the other room is like, hey, can you do the dishes? And they're like, no, nope, now I don't want to do them just because you said it. And I swear that was me all through high school, that was me partially through college, especially like raising my kids young. Like it took me a lot to finally like recognize that that was like a misperception of my brain, of somebody thinking that I was being lazy, and that I had to like just recognize that they're actually just trying to remind me because they know how prone I am to forgetting. But at the same time, you're
Yeah.
like, ugh.
I know.
So
Oh, I feel that.
yeah. So let me ask you this. What's next for you? I know that it looked like on your stuff that you're getting ready to launch a podcast. Is that right?
Yes, I am. I've been working on my podcast. I have taken a slow start to it because I do still work a full-time job.
Mhm.
And I've been trying to avoid burnout. So
Yeah.
I had a little ADHD burnout spell. And so I pulled everything back. And so I've been a slow start, but it is happening. There are podcast episodes being recorded. It's actually a thing. It's going to come out. I'm very excited about it. And I actually started also building some course content. So I'm hopefully going to
Awesome.
be selling a course pretty soon, or offering a course. Because I want to like be able to help as many people as I possibly can with
I know,
ADHD
right?
stuff. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited about all of that. So yeah, it's going to be a busy year.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it. So what, do
Yeah.
you mind if I ask, what do you do for a day job?
Yeah. So I'm in marketing. I have managed to be in marketing since I was 15 years old. I've just bounced which field I
What
worked
stream
in,
of marketing?
which
Yeah.
has been kind of cool because I've gotten to work at a lot of very interesting places, still doing the same job. So
Right.
it's been really neat. So yeah, I work for an IT company and I do marketing for them. So
Awesome. Well, yes, you sound perfect for marketing because a lot of ADHD people that I meet, especially extroverted ADHD people, are like super outgoing. Let's take a risk. I also know how to read people. For some reason, especially us women with ADHD, we're like super good at reading people. It's kind of
yeah,
creepy sometimes. Like my husband will come home, he'll retell a story to me, and I was like, and I'll kind of look at him and I'll be like, "Do you think like that person actually meant this?" And he'll be like, I never even thought about that, but that makes sense. And I was like,
Yeah.
when you have ADHD, you realize pretty quickly, especially because we're so impulsive, that like a lot of people just kind of like fib their ways through certain things. And we actually will just be like, I'll just tell you the truth, even though it sounds terrible, but I'll just tell it to you. But what I noticed is that not everybody's like that. And it took me some time to learn. And then once I did learn that, I'm like, I like being proven wrong about people, but man, sometimes you're just so good at reading people and knowing like what
I
will click with
know.
them. Marketing is like one of the greatest jobs for us.
It
So I'm
is.
excited for you. What is your goal with your course? Are you planning on teaching ADHD women something specific? Do you know what it will be yet? Or are you just
Yeah. So what I'm kind of working on is like an overall like ADHD management type course, like so to help you with time management, to help you with relationships, to help with food, diet, food and diet, and just the overall like really getting into what it is. Some of the terminology that you hear tossed around, and just so you can like really understand your brain a little bit better, which I think that's a course that I would have benefited from. And I have seen a few. I have follow a couple of coaches that offer courses that are fabulous. But yeah, I really want to dive in mostly because I want to learn
right
as much as possible. So
it's
if I'm going to be learning, I might as well also share. So
share it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've already learned so much just
I know,
being
right?
surrounded by thousands of other ADHDers. Like I've learned so much about myself and about what it is, and it's the coolest thing.
That's
There's really
awesome.
no words to describe like when you get the same messages from thousands of ADHD women, like kind of over and over, repeatedly, and it's things that you've been telling yourself for years. It's like this instant bond, and but it's with thousands of people at the same time, so it's like very surreal.
Yeah.
Especially after you spent so many years feeling like you were the only one, and then you're like, there's thousands of you. and some of them live very close to me,
Where are you? What state are you in?
So I'm in Virginia.
Okay, yeah, you're like, I don't know. Like, okay, so if I'm in the mitten, so you're like over here.
Yeah.
So that's how
funny.
we tell where everything
Yeah,
is.
there's several ADHD content creators that live on the East Coast, and so yeah, we're all very tight knit group
That's
of
awesome.
yeah. It's
Well,
really cool.
I'm so glad that you found an ADHD family, and I totally would love to be like your cousin within that ADHD family. That sounds awesome.
Cousin Lacy, come on over.
Okay. So yes, I want us to try to do this again, especially as you get closer to your course launch. We can talk more about it, and
That'd be nice.
and yeah, I would love to do that. I'm so glad you came on here. We do probably need to wrap it up. I'm going to ask you one last question. If you could go back and tell, your old self, pre-ADHD, maybe you were really struggling mentally, or wherever you were, probably at one of the lower parts of your life prior to knowing you had ADHD, what would you tell that Trina?
One word. Therapy.
That's perfect.
Start therapy sooner. Get somebody to talk to like you need somebody to talk to. Like life is like super difficult, and it would be great to have someone on the outside giving you life advice. I think that we all should be given free therapy for life. I think I am a therapy believer. So I think if I would have started therapy sooner, I would have been diagnosed sooner. I think it would just have helped me understand my brain. I needed therapy when I was much younger.
Yeah.
And it would have probably prevented me from making some big life mistakes. Yeah. So that would be the number one.
Number one. Perfect. Therapy for everyone. Awesome. Well, thank you again. And guys, I will link to Trina's social media in the podcast notes, as well as her TikTok page, her Instagram, and her website. Definitely go check her out and watch her awesome reels. You will relate to all of them, and you'll be hitting the save button like a million times, like I was when I first came across your page. So thanks so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Do you ever just wish someone could make decisions for you, so you didn't have to worry about the effort of making decisions? Maybe you question if you'll ever get your life together, or if you'll ever decide what you want to be when you grow up, and you're just feeling lost. Listen, whether you're a woman with diagnosed ADHD, a woman who suspects she may have ADHD, or just a woman who recognizes herself in the struggles I share on this podcast, I want to help. Through my mentorship, I want you to learn to trust yourself again by helping you discern God's desires for your life. How will we do that? By going back to the basics of being a Christian woman, what the gospel means for each of us, and how to apply it to our lives daily. But Lacy, how will that help my ADHD? Because once you have a good foundational understanding of who you are and what your value is, where it comes from and why, you'll then be able to figure out the next right step in your path to coping with your ADHD struggles. Whether that be practical ways of organizing your efforts, seeking therapy, continued coaching by me, or a formal diagnosis and medical intervention, it all begins at the source of all life, Jesus Christ. And you're probably thinking, okay, Lacy, but why are you doing this? And on top of that, why should we decide to work with you? Because I've been where you've been. Some days, I still know what it's like to ask myself questions like, am I really worth this? Can I really talk about this? Can I actually make a difference? And I'm here to tell you the answer is yes. And the answer is also yes to those questions for you. Yes, you can find a life you enjoy and feel comfortable with. And yes, you can find ways to manage your time, your life, your projects, your relationships, and your career. And yes, you can love Jesus while doing all of this. This mentorship will be slightly different than my regular one-on-ones. It will be group sessions monthly with a one-on-one with each and every member every 3 months for the first year instead of every month. But if you need more, you can ask for more, and I will be there. This isn't about me building a business or trying to gain a following. This is about you and your needs and the things you message me asking about. I want to help you build you. You can find the link in the bottom. Don't miss out. I cannot wait to see you there.